Harris, so. Hey, Ron, we didn't see Brandon Sheriff or David Sharp out there today. Is everything all right with them?
Well, I can tell you is that later today we're going to release a statement that they're both in the protocol right now. So, okay.
And are you concerned at all with any of them, I guess, going into the protocol?
Well, I mean, for the most part, we're just going to follow it and see what happens, with the rest of it.
You were obviously pretty frustrated the other day as you talked about this. Has that changed at all? Have you seen any sort of improvement with guys in this area? Or are you still?
Well, we'll see tomorrow. Tomorrow we're hoping we can get some more guys vaccinated, but we'll see. Again, it's a difficult topic. I've tried to approach it with a lot of our players, talk to a lot of our guys that haven't. And again, it's a personal thing. Hopefully we can sway them. Hopefully.
Back to football for a second. Terry McLaurin he talks about all the things that he does to improve and all that. Have you seen changes in him in this camp? If so, yes. What?
It's interesting because he's such a young player, and he's had 2 very successful seasons so far. And I couldn't tell you what he was like his first season, but last year he caught my attention immediately, and he's done the same thing and has been more impressive. So, you do see certain things. One thing I thought he did very well the last few days is his just adjustment on the balls that are thrown. Now, Fitz throws a very catchable ball. He throws the ball with good air under it, and it gives Terry, and for the most part, any of our receivers an opportunity to adjust and go get it. And I think that's playing to one of Terry's strengths, is that he has good body control when the ball's in the air, and he can put himself in position to make that catch.
Ron, I apologize for one more vaccination question. You've mentioned to us that you're obviously immune deficient and all of that. Have you kind of appealed to players in that sense of, I know you have a personal choice, but for lack of a better term, do it for me. Has that been part of any of your message to players?
Well, I think just making the statement that I'm immune deficient hopefully is part of their conversation, part of their thought process. But again, it is personal decision, and we just hope that again we can get more guys vaccinated.
I have one football, one vaccine question. The football one is that Landon Collins. What do you see from him just in the early going? I know there's no pads, but after his recovery, is he back to the level that you would expect him to be at?
Well, I think first of all, he's come in with a different resolve, a little bit more understanding of the concepts that we use as far as our defense is concerned. Last year, going through what we had to go through and then trying to learn it on the run, I think there was some hesitation in terms of picking it up, but you did see some of the really good moments last year until he got hurt. And I think he's just pretty much picking up where he left off, and that is he's got a better understanding of how we're doing things, the things that we do. And kudos to what he did in the offseason during OTAs and minicamp, mimicking the defense, being back there with Chris and watching practice, watching the way guys were doing things. I think that really helped him. And I think he's really taken the kind of steps that we're hoping he will. He's a tremendous talent, and that's one of the things that you really like about who he is. And quite honestly, once we put pads on, I'm not too worried about him because his strength is his physical play.
And then one vaccine question. With 6 players now on the list at this early stage of camp, are you concerned just in terms of the potential disadvantages for football and your own evaluation with camp?
And that's part of the problems. I mean, to be very honest, that's going to make things difficult, and that's the thing we have to be aware of. It makes it'll make it difficult in terms of everybody working together. Difficult on us as coaches with our evaluations, and the scouts, and it'll be difficult on the player, because having time off, not really getting an opportunity to work and develop and grow, and learning. That's the downfall, and that's the downside. And I mentioned it to our guys. I said, here's the what if scenario. What if this had been game day Sunday for the opener, and even though it's only contact tracing for some of them, that's 5 days. So if this is the opener, imagine this. Open against San Diego, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, playing Thursday night against the Giants. Those guys would not be eligible. So to me, it brings the reality of what the rules are. And I hope it helps. But again, these young men have to make, their decisions.
Do you have an update on DeShazer Everett?
He's continuing to work, and he's getting closer to being back out there.
Okay. And then to go back to what you said about Terry McLaurin, what kinds of things is he still fine-tuning in terms of his game and adjusting?
Well, I think right now he's got a great grasp of what we do offensively. I think more than anything else, it's just the timing aspect of working with Fitz, working with Taylor, working with Kyle, working with Steven, working with all our quarterbacks. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing. And again, we will see it once we get Curtis back out or back on the field, how he meshes with the rest of the group. But I don't expect it to be that difficult. I really don't. I mean, he's such a pro, and he's done things the right way.
Hey, Ron, back earlier in the offseason, we talked to you and Martin about the idea of possibly adding a veteran defensive end behind Chase and Montez. Obviously, you guys haven't done that. Just sort of curious as to, at this point, why or what have you seen from the younger guys that has you confident with that group?
Well, very confident in those guys to begin with. Very confident in what we've seen from James Williams-Smith. He's done a great job. He's a guy that we drafted last year for this type of role. We like the two young guys that we drafted this year. Both BK and Shaka are young guys that have an opportunity, and they've been practicing very well. And it's going to be an interesting battle. If there is a veteran guy out there that we like at the right situation and circumstances, yeah, maybe we'll go out and bring him in. But right now, we're giving our young guys an opportunity to show us what they can do.
Hey, Ron, so much has been made about perhaps the quarterback battle for the 1 spot. How do you view the battle for the 2 spot right now, the backup role?
Well, I think it's a mix of those guys. Kyle's starting to come on. He did tweak his bad ankle a little bit today. But he's starting to come on and get back into the mix. I mean, we have, 3 guys that we really truly like, and we like Steven Montez as a young developmental guy. I mean, this is a good situation for us. We have the makings, I think, of what could potentially be a solid foundation on offense, and we'll see how it melds together as we continue and go through camp. The first real test will be in a couple of weeks when we have our first preseason game, and it'll be an opportunity to see where we are, absolutely. But I do like the competition. I do like trying to create that, make sure the guys understand that's what it's going to come down to is, not just who the 1 is, but who the 2 is as well.
And when Sheriff went out, it looked like it was Schweitzer moving over to the right side and Flowers taking Schweitzer's spot at left. Is that how you would foresee that going?
That's one of the ways. We had a lot of combinations going out there. Sadiq Charles is another guy that we want to look at as well. But with David getting going down as well, we had to keep him a little bit outside instead of really giving him an opportunity to move inside. So there's a lot of impact and a lot of effect that happens when something like this. And I know you guys I talk about it all the time, is position flex. That's the nice thing about having guys with that kind of ability. We have some young guys that can play 2 positions or 3 for that matter. So it's not as concerning for now, but I promise you if this was the regular season, it'd be concerning.
The interceptions out here obviously don't matter too much. You can use them as a learning experience, but when do you kind of move on from, hey, it's a fine learning experience to, okay, we need to start taking care of the ball? How do you kind of balance that for these quarterbacks?
Well, and it's a good point because a lot of things that play into the fact of the way things happen. And you see this. There's no real consequences right now other than what we see. And it goes for both sides of the ball. Quarterbacks will tend to sling the ball knowing that they don't have to worry as much. And defenders will try to make plays a little bit more than they typically will. When I do start getting concerned is when we start playing games. The 3 preseason games will really help to play into our mind as to where we are with our positional players, our quarterbacks for that matter. You just have to, right now, take it for what it's worth. And when you see guys trying to fit it into tight spaces, when they complete it, it's great. When they don't, okay. Let's think about these things a little bit more. So right now, I am concerned, but to me, this is not going to impact my initial thinking. What will, like I said, is when we start competing against other teams.
Ron, the other day you told us that the team is learning a lot about itself in regards to how it's handling the vaccine and like the conversation around it. You also mentioned that you would go around and talk to each individual player, you know, to kind of figure out their reasoning. What do you feel like the team and you personally have learned about this situation within those conversations and just in general?
I think there's some you know, some deep thought going on from some of these guys. There is some concern about the vaccine when you talk to guys, and then you try to explain to them, hey, just remember, these vaccines weren't developed like a normal vaccine, because these things were worked on 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. The information that was being given out there to each other, they were sharing their knowledge, what they were learning. And as we found that some of the vaccine, some of its components have already been developed, because again, for the most part, it's if as I understand it, it's similar to some of the things that have been out there. So it's not like, you know, they started from scratch. It's not like what happened, you know, in 1917 with the Spanish flu, where they were starting from scratch. So there's a little bit more to it, and I don't think it's been given enough credit. You know, and plus it's been going in people's arms, you know, for about 8-9 months. And so there is that information that's out there as well. So, you know, I just think it's a matter of these guys being educated and understanding, because it's, you know, it's fair when you sit down and talk to these guys and listen to them and listen to their true concerns. And I think some guys just don't know. And I've gotten a sense that there are a few guys that have dug in so hard, so much, that they're not going to back down. So that's you know, that's part to me that's concerning, because I care about all these guys. I really do, and their families. And you do worry that somebody might catch it and go home and pass it on to a family member.
I ask this as genuinely as possible, but really, what do you feel like you can do at this point? You've brought in one of the top disease experts to talk to these guys about it, and still some players said that they didn't feel comfortable even after that session. They understand the rules, they understand the penalties, they understand that, you know, we've seen 2 potential starters go out on the protocol, and they know that they'll miss time because of this. Seriously, at this point, what can you do when you have all this laid out in front of you at this point in time?
Well, what'll be interesting is see what happens, you know, tomorrow. I mean, there's going to be an opportunity, you know, to get the vaccine, and we'll see how guys react. As I said, you know, earlier this week, we had a number of guys go get the vaccine, and what had happened was because they saw how the rules were affecting things. It was great to hear one of the guys, you know, when he was asked, well, why'd you go get it? Because, you know, just seeing everything, I want to be able to live my life a little bit freer. So that was pretty cool to hear. That really was. So I think they're starting to understand, and, you know, we'll keep our fingers crossed. So hopefully that we get a few more guys.
Ron, I wonder, you know, when you have those conversations with players, how does that work with team leaders? Are you having different conversations with them, extended conversations, or how does that work in terms of maybe deputizing them in that conversation?
Well, I talk to our guys. I'm going to leave it at that. You know, they've been great. They've listened. You know, I haven't been blown off by anybody, which I really respect that, because they're willing to listen.
For you, I wonder what you make of this time in Richmond, and what would your level of interest be in returning?
Well, I like what we had out there. I do. I thought the fields were wonderful, well prepared. They were ready for us to go. There's obviously more than enough room for us to be able to practice, to do the extra stuff in terms of the weight room, the training room, the locker rooms. Unfortunately, we had to have a split locker room because of the protocols. That was a little disappointing. I think it's a nice setup for the fans in terms of coming and bringing the energy. And, you know, it's the fields, again, I think is probably the biggest thing for me, because if you can take a break on your fields and not tear them down going into the season, that's big. And so, you know, we'll sit down and we'll discuss it. And, you know, but I did like the fields. I really did. I thought this was a very worthwhile facility for us.
Ron, good to see you in person. Deandre Carter looked like he had a pretty active day out there besides the obvious speed. What else do you like about what he brings and what he might be able to show you?
Well, you know, he also made a couple of really tough catches as well today, and he's done it all camp. You know, he is a dual returner. He's got NFL experience, and that's one of the things that attracted to us. That's why we signed him in the offseason, obviously, because to have a dual returner it gives you more flexibility with your game day roster. So there are some things that he brings to the table in terms of his skill set. He can play the slot, and if you get into a situation, he can also play the X receiver. So again, there's that position flex that we talk about. He's a guy that also runs well with the ball in his hands. So again, looking at what we do offensively, he's more than a fit in terms of looking for a guy that can do those types of things.
With a couple guys getting the vaccine early this week, do you know what the percentage is by now for the team at this point?
Not really. I mean, I know it's improved. It's trending in the right direction, and hopefully we'll continue to have it continue to rise for us.
Last one. Can I just real quick, you mentioned tomorrow there's a vaccination setup. Is there an event tomorrow?
No. No, we've had guys that have asked, and so we've set some up because guys have asked for it specifically, and and so we've said, hey, we'll get appointments for you guys that want it. So we'll see if they show up and follow through, and that's what we're hoping.
Is that at the facility, or is that just at somewhere else?
That's through one of the providers.
All right. Thanks,
All right, cool. Thank you, guys.